Good morning, everyone. Good morning. And today's learning is dedicated in memory of Anabas David Ashley, Daniel Ben-Zion Cohen Kane, Devera Berman, Pinchas Ben Mordechai Cooper, Leib Ben Yosef Denton, Nachum Ben Avram Cohen Fox, Yosef Ben Osher Stern, Pero Rachel Bas Avram Son, as well as those which we have saying Kaddish throughout the year. Leah Bas Faiva, Rav Yaakov Tzvi Ben David Aryeh, Tzivi Bas Mordechai, Avram Ben David Slavin, Shlom Ben Yisrael Morris, Tzipora Fegele Bas Reuven Baruch, Shalom Ben Eli Ali, Beina Bas Faiva, Fruma Shoshana Bas Yaakov Shmuel, Kayla Bela Bas Henach, Yirmiyahu Yechiva Ben Echav Moshe, Eliezer Sarah Malka Bas Binyamin. So I want to share a brief idea today, a brief idea that relates to the last chapter. We're up to the last chapter of the ways of Tzaddikim. Okay, the book that we've been studying for months on end. We come to the end. I'm just going to give a very brief synopsis of it, and then we'll move on to something fresh, probably after Hanukkah. Hanukkah will take it easy. We'll do a few ideas about Hanukkah, and then we'll start a new book afterwards, okay? So the book, the author says that the fear of heaven, right, which is what we call Yirat Shamayim, God-fearingness, right, is something which it goes to is a foundation upon which everything else rests. Okay, there are two ways in which we can have a relationship with God. One is out of Yira, out of fear, and the other one is out of Ahava. Now, obviously, loving is the higher level. Okay, it's a positive. As opposed to fearing someone is that I don't do something, I hold back. So there are two types of mitzvot that we have. There is the mitzvah of Yirat Shema. There are mitzvot which are positive. The mitzvot which are positive are, for example, wearing tzitzit, davening every day, giving tzedakah. So all those things are positive, and those are done out of ahava, out of ahava, out of love. Whereas negative commandments are what? So a negative commandment is a lot, I say. It's don't do something. Don't worship other idols, right? Don't commit adultery. Don't speak lashon hara. And why don't I do it? Because of the fear of the consequences. The fear of the consequences. So we have two dimensions in which we are operating and relating to God, and in which we do or don't do things in life. One is out of fear, and the other is out of love. When it came, in fact, to the giving of the Torah, we find that there were these two aspects. God held the mountain over the Jewish people, right? There was coercion, and we can discuss another time about why that was necessary. But there were these two aspects, one out of love and one out of fear. In fact, the other nations of the world came to God and they said, if only we had been coerced into accepting the Torah. If you put a gun to our heads, then we also would have accepted the Torah, right? In other words, had you held the mountain over us, we also would have accepted the Torah. So the Ramban Nachmanides, I believe, says as follows. He says that the Jewish people had something which the non-Jews didn't have, and that was that there was this love for God. We said we will do and we will listen at the time of the giving of the Torah, and that reflected the fact that we had that deep-seated love towards God. And therefore, if you have the love, then I can coerce you and force you in. But if it is that God would have just coerced them and persuaded and nudged the non-Jewish nations to accept the Torah, it wouldn't have helped, because you can force somebody, you can coerce somebody, which instills fear. But what you can't do is you can't engender a feeling of love. Okay, you can't engender a feeling of love. You with me? Right. So therefore, both are essential elements: fearing God, loving God. Okay, but the essential point is that fear of God is the foundations upon which everything else rests. In fact, we find the Talmud says as follows. Listen to this one. What does God ask from you? Only one thing, to fear God. Now, if I were to ask you, and let me just say good morning to all our listeners and viewers, to Michelle, to David, to Peter, to Michael, to Rachel, to Colin, and all the thousands of others that are watching us from around the world. If I was to say to you, does God only want one thing from us? What does God want from us? So let's go through the list. So there's the positive and there's the negative commandments. There's don't steal, there's don't kill, don't commit adultery, right? Keep the Shabbat, right? Give charity, love your neighbor, right? I don't know, every aspect of our lives are governed. I'm looking at a suit opposite that's got to go to the Shatner Center. Even the clothes we wear, if there's Shatners in it, right? If there's wool and linen, we have to be concerned. There is nothing that we don't do that is not governed by Jewish law. Okay? So therefore, how can we make a statement? How can the Talmud make an audacious statement to say there's only one thing that Jewish people have to do? One thing. And that is to fear God. So let me explain to you with a beautiful, beautiful analogy that we've said before, friends, from one of my great teachers, Rabbi Zev Lev Schlitter. And he said as follows: if we were to imagine that you had a very, very bright light bulb, okay, it was dazzling. You know, you can get these very bright light bulbs with one in the house, and literally you need sunglasses to wear it. So you wouldn't actually be able to look at that light because it's too intense, it's too overpowering, overwhelming. So what do? You go to IKEA and you buy a lampshade, and you put a lampshade around the light. Now, you are still benefiting from the light, but you are not blinded by the light. Now, if you want to see a bit more of what that light looks like, you can cut out little holes in it, windows in it, so that you can get a glimpse. Now, says Rob Lepp, if we were to imagine that you cut out 613 little windows in this lamp, okay, it'll be a very holy lamp, then you will, through each of those windows in that lamp, be able to see, in the lampshade, you'll be able to see a glimpse of the light behind the lampshade. And therefore, the more instances in which you look through the various windows, the more you build up a composite view of that light. The light, says Rav Lev, is the God-fearing, is the fact that we're meant to have fear of God. But it's too overwhelming. It's far too intense. So therefore, the way that we come towards God, fearing God, and eventually loving God, is through his commandments. But as I said to someone I was learning with yesterday, it is essential that in order to love God, that you have to have and fear God, you have to have this awareness of what we are doing. I think in modern parlance, Michael, they call it mindfulness. Mindfulness, for those that are at the uninitiated, is very in vogue. It's very in at the moment. And what it means essentially is that I pause and I am mindful. I have a greater awareness. I am able to appreciate what is going on around me. It's unbelievable that we've reached a stage where we have to have a whole theory and therapy for us to be able to realize what's in front of our noses. But hey ho, that's where we are. Anyways, so the bottom line is I have an awareness of what's in front of me. So the idea is that if we want to look through these windows when we are doing mitzvot, when we are serving God, when we are involved in our Judaism, when we are engaged in actions and reactions every single day, we have to have mindfulness. We have to be aware of what we are engaged with. What are we really doing? Why are we doing this? Are we putting in any effort? Is there any gusto in what we are doing? Or is it just what I call robotic Judaism? We're on autopilot. We're just going through the motions. Yeah, do this, like the menorah. No, I'm going to sit before the menorah. I'm going to get it ready. I'm going to clean it. I'm going to polish it. I'm going to think about what exactly is represented by that battle between the Greeks and the Hasmoneans, and the link between that and the oil, the mitzvah of the oil. You can hear her talk about it later from me. But let's just think about what we are doing. There are many battles in Jewish history. Why is it this one was so significant? Obviously, it was more than a physical battle, an ideological battle, a philosophical battle. And how did we win? And what does that mean to us? And when I light the menorah, I'm making that commitment to myself, to my people, and to God, that I am rekindling, reigniting my spirit, my faith, which is what happened after the battle with the Greeks. So, friends, we have learned something fundamental today that I would say is perhaps one of the most important things for you to take away, and that is the idea of God-fearingness, of having that awareness, that cognizance on a daily basis of what we are doing, that through the different windows, they are a means to an end for us to become more aware, more connected, more engaged, more a greater awareness of God's presence in our lives. So I wish you all a happy Hanukkah, and we carry on now with the memorial prayer. Sorry, before that we have to do Psalm 23. I'm losing sight. Okay. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anoint, where is it? I've lost it. My cup overflows. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Sorry, I had one too many late nights this week. Okay. Next, memorial prayer. Adon Elamim Zachar Es Nishma is Chanabas David Ashley, Daniel Ben Siona Cohen Kane, Dover Berman, Pinchas Ben Mordechai Cooper, Leigh Ben Yosef Denton, Nathan Ben Abraham Cohen Fox, Yosef Ben Usher Stern, Pero Rachel Bas Abramson, Leah Bas Fivo, Rabbi Yaakov Tzvi Ben David Aryeh, Tzivia Bas Mordechai, Abraham David Ben Slavin, Shalom Ben Yisrael Morris, Peri Fega Bas Ben Baruch, Shalom Ben Elili Ben Bas Fivo, Moshe Shams, Yaakov Shmo, Yakel Ben Bas Enach, Yom Yochid Ben Nachal Moshe Eliezer, Samata Bas Yomin, Shal Chuli Lamam, Began Eden Teimanucha, Samlachin Balarachamim, Yasti Rain Beseisa Kanavam Yalamim, Yasavas Resis Rasamanai, Nachlasam, Yanuch Bishlomish Kabam, Benamar, Amen, long life wishes to all. Before Shlomo prayer. Misha Berach Avasin Romans of Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo Ivach Rabbetzach Chilim Babo Sha'an Mispalim Babo Ram Biz Chazagadosh Baruch Hu Yimale Rachem Alechem Rachem Alefosam Yishlach Lem Fushlim Shemaim Lachol Rem Mesach Shech Yisrael Before Sanef Shpusag of Hashem Bagis Makarib Namar Amen. Before Shlomo to everyone. So we look forward, just a few hours to go until we begin Hanukkah. Very exciting, one of my favorite festivals of the year. And I have to admit, it's certainly in part to do with my love of donuts, and we cannot wait, and we look forward to it. After so much darkness of the pandemic, I am sure that the light and glow of our Hanukkah menorah will bring greater warmth and light and hope throughout the darkness of the pandemic that we are experiencing. Enjoy it with whoever you have. You can Zoom it on weekdays, and please keep safe, keep well, look after yourselves. A wonderful, happy Hanukkah. Thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me and us on a wonderful odyssey and journey as we've journeyed through this book, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, the ways of tzaddikim we have completed. We should all, please God, continue to emulate and to follow in the ways of tzaddikim, the ways of the righteous, so that we can be v'halachta b'dracha, we can go in the ways of the Almighty and lead a meaningful and fulfilling life. Wishing you well, keep safe, keep well, have a great day, and look forward to seeing you tonight on the program I'm going to put up now. Take care.